Yeah.
Okay,
It's
There it
there.
all right.
Yeah.
This is the Land Use Committee meeting for September 12th, 2023. And my name is Ann Mazar, and I'm the chair of the committee. And maybe everyone can introduce themselves. Elena,
Sure. I'm Elena Brugos. I'm the select board member of the committee.
Carolyn. You're on mute. All right, we'll go to someone else while she unmute. Oh, no, there you go.
Okay. These controls are different from Zoom. I'm Carolyn Barthel. I'm a member of the Land Use Committee.
And Phil Sipley.
Phil Sipley, member of the Council of Aging, as well as the chair of the build out on a new building for the senior center.
Frank.
Frank Nero, member of the Land Use Committee.
Peter.
Peter Coffin, member of the Land Use, representing the Concom.
Barry.
Barry Adirola, planning board representative.
And Lisa. Oh, she's on mute. Oh, Lonnie, why don't you introduce yourself? Nope, he's on mute. All right, Lonnie Tinio is a guest and Lisa Mozinski is a guest, and she's from the Metacomet Land Trust. Since we have other people here, I'd like to go over those agenda items first so that they don't have to sit through the whole meeting. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, well, one question, Lonnie, do you want me to wait till you're home?
I can hear. The only thing is I just wouldn't be able to present anything until I'm home, but I can definitely speak to anything as long as you can hear me.
Why don't you, when you're home and ready, just let us know, okay? And then we'll do other items. Okay. Lisa.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa, would you like to go next? And can we hear you? Huh. Do you have headphones in your computer maybe? No. I don't know why. You're not muted on our end. She's coming back on. Okay, well, while she's coming back on, did you get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes except of the last meeting, which I don't have the date in front of me.
Yeah.
Wait, I do have the date in
6/13.
front of me. Okay, of 6/13 as submitted.
Okay, second?
Peter Coffin seconds.
Okay. Yeah, Carolyn, I don't think since everybody's here, you don't vote. That, you know, because you're the alternate, so. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
All right.
do you need
although-
roll call or
I think everybody said aye. I think we're good.
okay. Okay.
I think for simplicity, Ann, just going forward, you can take a vote and everyone can vote yay. And then you should ask if anyone objects. And that
That's
way.
what Yep.
Yeah.
And I was
We
just
don't
gonna
have
do
to
that.
take a head count.
Okay, does anybody object? Okay, so we're good. Let's see. Well, why don't we go to the senior center? One of the things that is happening is the town's looking for either expanding the current senior center or finding a new location. And so Phil Sipley and Elena Brujos are on the committee, and they're going to kind of fill us in on what's happening.
Sure, I'd be glad to. We're currently in the design phase of the senior center, either an expansion or a new building. We're looking at our current location. We have an architect hired. We should have a cost assessment by Q4 calendar year. The facility area that we're looking at is our current, as I said, We're looking at one of the plots up at North Avenue and Route 16. The second lot in, I think it is. And we're also looking at an area in the Hopedale Street and North Ave, which is under trust and some sort of an arrangement may be given to us. The fourth properties, we're relooking the Morrison Drive old police station attempt, just to see if it's feasible. We're looking at all four to make sure that we evaluate what makes sense for the senior center requirements and most effective for the town. We started out just looking at our own place, but then we decided to expand that for a number of good reasons. We will be making our selection, I would suspect, over the next 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
And our plan would be to go to town meeting to get the cost approvals in the May meeting to get funding for a build, to have a premise built and in place in 2025. So we have an aggressive schedule, but I think we have everybody on board.
Yeah, you've laid a lot of the groundwork down too, so I think you can move forward, you know, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um,
And
any
one of the things that we had with, as we look at the facility, because the building occupancy, we have acreage requirements and sewer requirements, septic systems requirements. We have well requirements because the occupancy, and also we have parking expansion that needs to be done and redesigned considerably different than it is today. So what we find ourselves involved with in the current location, the property which is for the housing, which is next door, and I think there's conservation land behind it, or that we may need for acreage count. When we go up the street to North Ave and Route 16, I think we may have a similar situation for drainage and storage. I think there's adequate area there, but I think there's conservation or restrictions on the abutting lot or an area around us. So we need to make sure there's nothing there. And as we go into the North Ave and Hopedale Street, there is currently there's a lot of restrictions on that one. We'd have to change. It's in trust it's currently in a trust that would be given back to us, but there's some restrictions on land use. So we'd have to check that out. And as we look at Morrison Drive, we have to take a look and make sure we have enough room for expansion and the well and sewage system can support what we need, plus the recreational area around the building.
on
so
the
I thi-
Morrison Drive, oh, sorry, go on.
So I think that's a number of different things. Also, the access point into Morrison Drive is somewhat cumbersome and third worldish, in my frank opinion. My opinion.
Would you, at 8 Morrison Drive, would you try using the building that's there, or would that not be used?
No, the goal would be to try to use whatever we can there. There wouldn't be sense to put another building beside an empty building. So we had the architect walk through it. He'll be evaluating that along with the other one. It's not big enough. From what I can gather, just visually. I haven't measured it. I haven't looked at the plans in detail. So we'd have to rearrange it. Not sure the architect said the shell was good. It may need to be resized, siding. The infrastructure would have to be rethought and reworked, maybe. We don't know until we look at what's there. And then the other thing I had thought about is there a way from an access point to come in through the paddock property? But there's no access point into the paddock property yet other than the driveway to that house. And that creates another whole traffic issue, I think, down where the road I come up every day, which is Providence and Hartford Ave. I don't know how you'd get an access point in there to get back to paddock easily.
It's a little dangerous intersection there.
Yes, yeah. And that's some of the factors we're looking at. We're looking at senior citizens. We're looking at traffic patterns. We're looking at visibility to the community. We're looking at a number of different things. But that's the 4 properties we're looking at. And I think each one of them has some relationship to the land use around us, either abutting or new places we're looking at, and how it's structured. So I'd ask this group and Ann to look at what we're trying to do in our lots. And as we zone in, be able to respond to the various needs that we may have from a standpoint of outside recreation, passive, as well as access and entry, and also well and storage. Septic. I think are the ones that come to mind first. So that's kind of an update where we're at.
Are there any questions?
Well, Phil, you said
Yes,
you
Peter
were,
Coffin, just a quick question, sorry. How big is your existing site? Because that seems the ideal, but maybe you don't have enough room there.
There's not enough room.
What's the,
We're kind of, the current site is, we're turning people away. They ran out of space about 5 or 6 years ago. So the current place is somewhere around 45 to 5,000 square feet, counting the basement, which is the food pantry and the facilities garage for the van. So the expansion is probably going to take it at least over 6,000. We'll have more detail when we get to the design review, which we're doing this week with the architect. We're doing a
right,
room
I
by
appreciate
room.
it. Sorry, actually, my question was how much land do you have? Because I would think you could expand. I
Oh,
understand
the
buildings too
existing
small.
land, I think, is like 10 acres, I think, in our current location. But that's way back into wetlands and other things. The current footprint's not very large.
I think another concern about that property from the architect is that where the additional parking would go is not ideal for where the building is. They usually would like to have it be between the road and the building. So I guess the traffic flow is going to be challenging at that location. So that is one of the considerations for a new building would be to build in the parking from the beginning.
Yeah, I think the architect who's familiar with designing senior centers typically likes to have a drop-off point that's not integrated with the parking, so people aren't running people over as they come in and out. So he has a lot of good points and considerations that I wasn't aware of, but I think we need to look at seriously to have the proper entrance and exit and drop-off areas for the seniors. And considering all the handicap accessibilities that we need.
Another point that came up is the cost to expand the current site is apparently going to be comparable to the cost of building a new building altogether. So there's the potential for Mendon to gain a new building for sort of a similar cost of just
Yes,
partially demolishing and expanding the existing building. So that's another consideration that
oh, very good
if
point.
Mendon can use the current senior center for other purposes, if we have a new building, so that stands to be a gain.
Frank, what was your question?
well, before Peter stole my thunder, I was gonna ask the question about the existing lot and the possibility of expansion, but I think that's been answered.
Okay. The one property, 131 North Avenue, which is on the corner of Hopedale Street and Route 16, has a conservation restriction on it. So I'm looking into if that can be altered, so that a senior center could be put there. That was the site originally where the regional library they were hoping to put there, but that didn't go through. So, but I don't have any information on that yet. Anything else? Any other questions?
Other than, Phil, you mentioned that the council is prepared to make a decision soon. How soon did you think they were going to come to a decision, or are you still exploring?
I think we're gonna factor in several things: cost, structure, ease of access, and growth and potential for overall use. Right now, doing a site assessment for all four. We're doing a cost analysis for all four. Lonnie's getting some additional information on lot 31, 131. So I'm hoping we can do it probably in the next 60 to 90 days at the maximum. Because I want to have good firm costs so that we can have a good 6 months to prepare ourselves for funding sources, what we need to ask the town for, and position for the May town meeting. So we need to do it before the end of this year. I'd like to drive it to a 60, 90-day decision.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you, Phil, for that overview.
Okay,
And-
and if there's any questions ever come up, feel free to reach out to myself or Elena. She's on our committee as well. I'll be more than supplied with information, and I look forward to working with you guys and staying in touch.
Great.
And Ann, you're always welcome. There's a couple other topics we can cover about passive recreation at a future time in and
Yes.
around all 4 of these locations.
Yeah, they would like to have like ADA accessible paths, you know, like hiking, walking areas. So that's something that I think CPA funds could be used for. All right, okay, thank you.
Thanks. I may just listen in, just see how the meeting goes for a little
Okay.
bit, if you don't mind.
No
You can
problem.
boo me if you want.
Yeah. Lisa, would you like to go next? Are you all set up?
Yeah,
Okay,
I apologize. I was told to turn off my sound when I was physically in the meeting room in town hall, so I never turned it back on, so.
oh,
that was the problem. But I want to say hello to everybody. I'm Lisa Melzinski, the president of Metacomet Land Trust, and especially to Elena and Caroline, who I've known from the past, so it was great to see you again. I'm here to talk about 101 and 109 North Avenue, which many of you might know as the Vandersloot property. It's a farm preserve right now, but the Vandersloot's want to put a conservation restriction on the majority of their property. And the land trust, which would be about 116 acres of open space that is currently used for farm and just open space, forested, beautiful property. The land trust saw that the Commonwealth offers a conservation partnership grant. And in order to participate in that, we had to have the property appraised for its conservation restriction value. So we went and we did that. As you can imagine, it was appraised for a good bit of money. And with the conservation restriction on it, it lowers it significantly. So what we're looking at is actually buying the development rights for this property. So the Commonwealth Partnership Grant requires a match, or it requires the town or another conservation entity to jointly hold the restriction with the land trust. And so we approached the Conservation Commission, and they agreed that should this all transpire, they would be willing to hold the conservation restriction with us, which means that there's basically at the minimum, an annual tour of the property to make sure that the parameters of the restriction are being met. So then we've looked at trail opportunities. There's a terrific concept that would go from Hopedale, which has conservation properties that abut this property on its east side. You could walk through the woods, the forest, down to the pond, which I'll try to show you in a moment, and basically loop back out, crossing the pipeline, which bisects the property. And it's also bisected by Muddy Brook. which many of you know, there are other conservation parcels in Mendon that are along Muddy Brook, and it has some terrific wildlife and watershed protection that's going on there. So we approached the Community Preservation Committee, and we were asking if they would match the amount we've asked for in with the grant, which is $175,000, which would make the cost of the conservation restriction $350,000. We've also asked for some due diligence funds as well, because we have to have it surveyed and many other things. But we came before the committee because we'd like to take this before the November town meeting for approval. And we're not sure exactly when in November. We will find out whether we've received the grant or not, but we're trying to be strategic and line things up so that we can be successful and purchase these development rights. So if you'd like to see a few pictures for a moment, I will try to share my screen.
Also, I just wanted to ask, is everybody familiar which property this is? It's on North Avenue and it's got the hay fields and, okay.
I think so.
I'm not sure. Okay, let's see.
Well, Lisa's, do I have to do anything to have her share the screen, Elena?
I mean, it depends on the settings, so I think it'll pop up if she needs an additional
Okay.
permission from you.
Do you see the that where it says more and the 3 dots? Is that where? No.
I clicked share content.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
You have to select share and then select the window or the actual document that you would like to share.
Yeah. That did it. Select content. This should
Okay,
do it.
thanks, Lonnie. There we go. Looks like she's got it. Yeah. We can see it, Lisa.
Oh, excellent. So they would like to call this the Maple Farm Wildlife Preserve. And there would be limited passive recreation, mainly in hiking and for environmental classrooms. But otherwise, the majority of this property would be protected as habitat and open space. The envelope of the buildings that are the farm buildings and the house on North Ave, as well as a small lot that they've expanded a little bit, that would remain outside of the restriction. So here you can see, this was in May. These are the hay fields that are below the farm, the barn. You can mainly see these from the road. This is some pasture further to the interior moving east. I don't know if any of you have been on this property. This is entering the woods, again, still moving east and coming upon the pond that was created, according to Jim, created to harvest ice, which is something that's almost completely disappeared from our environment these days. But here you get a look at the pond. The edge line may have been harvested by beaver at one point, but it's terrific habitat for wildlife. This makes you feel like you're in Maine or somewhere. It was a beautiful morning. This is some of the stone walls and stone features that are there. At some point, we might have some folks who are familiar with Native American markers go out and possibly document some of these. This is a cart road or a logging road probably that is beautiful. It follows a long neck hill and it's moving east toward the pipeline, east towards Hopedale. This is the pipeline looking north, so this can also be used as a trail. And the pipeline looking south, again, that's parallel more or less to Muddy Brook. And then this is on the return looking west, looking at the pond and looking west. So there's terrific opportunity for habitat, for trails, for passive recreation. To be clear, the Vandersluises will still own the property. Their heirs will be able to farm the property, but the development will be prohibited in perpetuity. So the restriction to keep it in conservation travels with the deed. So no matter how many times it changes hands, that is attached to the deed. And Metacomet, in conjunction with the Conservation Commission, will go out on at least an annual basis to inspect the parameters of the restriction. But then over the years, we'll also be working with folks like yourselves and other folks, and in the scouts from the schools to maintain the trails and to develop environmental classrooms with teachers and things like that.
There's a couple things I wanted to mention, Lisa. Is this a good point to do that?
Sure.
Okay. One is that this abuts the 131 North Avenue, which is one of the sites for the senior center, and also has a conservation restriction on it and has open space. And I talked to Gary Smith, and he's very agreeable to allowing parking at that site, which could be the senior center, and then have a trail that would go down that lot and connect to this one. And on the other side of the property, heading south, is more open space. Some of it is preserved, the town property on Route 16, and then there's some pieces in between which, trail easements could be gotten possibly. That was one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is that I just kind of, well, two things, but one is that the value of this property is 1.6 million, and the town would put in 225,000. So it's like a fraction of the cost of the value of this property. And the CPA funds are very healthy. We have $3.1 million in there, so this would not affect the funds at all. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that it'll allow passive recreation, but they will not allow hunting. That is something they don't allow right now in the property, and they don't want to have that hunting in the future. So that's all the other properties we've ever preserved always allow hunting. So this is a little unusual situation, but obviously providing wildlife habitat for deer. Lisa, is there anything else that you want to add?
Well, I'll just follow up with that. I talked to Jim, and he's very amenable to the idea that the trail could start next to the property, which is the Shirley Smith property, and go down along Stonewall and then cross over to his property. Because if this continues to be viably used for agriculture, it's important also that we try to be as careful as possible between the haying of the fields and respecting that schedule, as well as any animals that are pastured there. So I think this is a really great opportunity. Jim and Sherry have worked that land for generations, actually, and they hope to pass it on to his nephew, and at least in the short term. But we worked with, this is not something that's new to the organization, and probably not new to Ann. It's like 25 years ago, we were working on this to try to preserve this property. The view shed is incredible and is just iconic piece of Mendon that we would be thrilled to partner with the town of Mendon on preserving.
And
I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention too is that developers are obviously very interested into this property because it's such a high profile. It's 116 acres. It has the open field, so it'd be a great Maple Farm subdivision, for someone. So there is pressure on the property.
I have a-
Questions, yeah,
I
Carolyn.
have a question. You mentioned a pipeline. What kind of pipeline is this and where is it?
So I believe it's a gas pipeline. And I can't remember where it starts, but on that property, it starts over on Hopedale Road. And it runs north-south, basically parallel to Muddy Brook.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Can you pull up on the map the area that's gonna be open to the limited passive recreation? Along with the map for the property, so we can see what we're allowed to use and what we're not allowed to use?
So I just want to remind you that this will be under private ownership. So the recreation opportunities are worked out in partnership with the town and with the land trust to be able to access. So it's not exactly
Right.
delineated specifically that there's part you can and cannot use.
But I believe you showed an area during the CPC meeting that was down by the Hopedale line that you were touting as where the trails were in the area that would be allowed to be used by the public. I
Can you
wanted to
pull
be
that
able to
map
see
up?
that
Lisa?
Let me,
as compared to the
if you
rest
give
of
me
the
a
lot,
second,
what we're not allowed to
I will
use.
try to do that. But that's why we also looked at connecting the trail between the Shirley Smith property. And so you could, in theory, there could be a trail that goes from the Shirley Smith property east and then south so that you can connect on the lower side of the pond. I'm just bringing that up in a second.
Well, it would be access along the whole, there's a stone wall between 131 and the Vandersloot property. So the trail could go right along that stone wall. So you'd be walking by all the hayfields, the pastures with animals, depending on, you know, who has the property, cutting over to these trails that Lisa is going to show. And that goes into Hopedale open space. And then eventually we could possibly connect it to the open space on Route 16 that the town owns.
Right, but
And
the
as
map you
Lisa
had showed
said,
at the CPC, the map you
What?
showed at the CPC meeting, I believe the area that we were allowed to use was shaded in yellow and the rest of it was shaded in green.
yeah, she has a trail, which is a suggestion of a trail.
Yeah, there was not a delineation specifically. I'm sorry.
Also have a good question while Lisa's still putting up the map.
Sure.
Why are there two different parcels, 109 and 101? What is parcel 109? What is that? What's on that? It's just hard to tell.
Parcel 109 right now is just part of a hayfield, but it was separately owned by, it's still owned by the Vanderslooses, but it's a separate parcel.
A lot of the old properties are separate parcels, like the Paddock property was 2 parcels, but the Paddocks have owned it, you know? And I just see Peter Coffin has a question. Peter, would you like to ask that?
Yes, a question and I guess a concern. A simple question. It looks like a beautiful pond, the ice pond. I never knew it was there. I'm assuming that's the Muddy Brook that's been dammed, or is it
That's
a
correct.
different pond? Okay, so that's Muddy Brook, and what is the dam like? Is it in good shape? Or it's not a concern of ours. It'll still be owned by them, but it looks beautiful, the pond. So having said that, the concern I have, this is new to us, it's sort of like APR, right? It's development rights, which I'm very supportive. However, I would want to see some permanent easement, I guess, for recreation that's on some part. And that's the problem, because this is privately owned and they're going to want to do it. But if it's town money in it, I would want to see something, I guess, for public access. And I'll leave it at that.
That just, Peter, that's one of the requirements for the grant and for using the CPA fund, that there would be public access. So that's definitely part of it. the
So
project.
then that boils back to the question is what access to what part of that? The whole enchilada or a limited area? So I don't know. It needs to be worked on, but
Yeah, Lisa, do you want me to find the map?
It's just really, my system's really slow and somebody's moved things around here, so I'm almost there. So basically the access, you know, we would ask people to stay on the trails. There's still going to be pasture land with cows and whatever else they might have. So, I mean, as with any conservation restriction, most of the time it specifies how much public access that there is.
So in terms of the fields, you would, from the 131 on that side, you would see the fields, and then it's the bottom part that doesn't have the open fields where trails would most likely go. But also with the conservation restriction, like future trails could be decided with the owner and the holders of the conservation restriction. Are you getting there, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can find
Yeah.
it. Right.
Some of the maps folders were moved. So this has also been in chapter 61 all along.
Everyone,
While she's doing that, Ann, what do we pay for the paddock property? How many acres was there?
there was 60 acres and we paid 990,000. So this is 116 acres and it would be 220.
Or 1.6 for the full value?
The full
Correct.
value of it's 1.6. Okay.
So my train of thought is we paid 9 something for paddock. Why wouldn't we just look into buying this for 1.6 and having sports fields and other things that we can do with it and have the rest of it open space with a conservation restriction on it?
Because the owners don't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, Lisa, is that?
So what they're looking for is for us to pay for their restriction, while they still own it and use it, and then we're limited as to what we can use. That's what I'm trying to show, the area that we're allowed to use, because it's very, very small compared to the rest of the property. And then we get the issue with, of the no hunting, which I brought up at the CPC meeting. So
Right,
we're paying $225,000 for something that's very, very limited use.
So another way of looking at this is that if this property was sold and developed, not only would you have to use this, integrate the services that are needed into town, but you'd also probably be looking at building another school.
So obviously people keep talking about it being developed, but I believe the town has right of first refusal to buy it. And I don't see why the town wouldn't be interested in buying a parcel like that, considering the location and the value of it to the town for future use. Considering we just spent 900 something thousand on the paddock, and we've got other properties that are more rock piles than anything else.
I mean, I think part of the issue with that, and I see some hands up, which I'll get to, is that they would like to preserve the property now. The Medical Hamlet Land Trust has a grant to do that. If Jim and Sherry die and then their heir gets the property, and, not sure what they do with it, we would have the right of first refusal, but the heir could pull it out of 61A and then just do whatever they want with it. So you don't really you can't just wait for that to happen, because the owner can pull the property out of 61A. And this is a great opportunity because, first of all, you'd be saving.
Because
What?
you just talked about putting a restriction on the property for perpetuity. And if you do that, The is sell it. They're not gonna take it out of 61A and we're not gonna be able to do anything with it if we put this restriction on it. That's what I'm saying. For us to put the restriction on it, we're binding our hands to future use.
Possibly, if it ever got to that point, but we don't know if that will happen. And it is available for passive recreation, trails, and also wildlife habitat. And it happens to have core habitat, which is really important wildlife habitat.
Well, the-
So it's
the
protecting that.
Presentation said it was limited passive use, limited.
N-
It wasn't passive use of 116 acres. It's limited passive use. That's why I'm
Yeah,
trying to show the map
Yeah.
of what we can use.
Yeah, are you
So
getting
the
there,
map-
Lisa?
The map is on the screen. Can you see it?
No.
Oh, stop sharing view.
When you compare the area that we're allowed to use compared to the rest of the property, they can see what I'm talking about.
I think also though, like other properties that we preserved, we asked people to stay in the trails. And so it wouldn't be any different than that, except for the hunting aspect. It's also in a location where it's very close to Misco School, so it would be a great resource for teachers to use and students to use, and they're actively right now working on outdoor environmental education. So it would be good in that for that, and especially with the pond and the river there, or the muddy brook. Lisa, I wonder if maybe you should unshare and see if I can get it on the screen.
Do you have it?
No,
I
we don't
just
see
don't.
it.
Of the passive area, this Phil, is it in limited use? Is it accessible to seniors by any chance? Or what's the terrain like?
I mean,
Okay, and I stopped sharing, so if you can bring
Okay.
it up.
all right.
I don't,
Wait 1 second, Phil. Lisa, you can talk and answer questions while I try to do this.
so Phil, you're talking about senior citizens, correct?
Correct. Which-
There's a lot of opportunity there that we could work, especially if it happened that the senior center was on the Shirley Smith property. We could definitely work on laying out a trail that would be not only accessible to seniors, but possibly accessible to handicap.
Well, that's essentially, that's what I'm getting to. It needs to be handicap accessible to
Mhm.
some degree, maybe not to full extent. But passive recreation or trails for non-handicap accessible has limited value to the senior center.
Okay, can
Yeah.
you see this? Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so the property is in red. And this is the pink is the Hopedale conservation areas. Then the trails would go into the property, to the pond, down. It could connect from, this is 131. Can you see my cursor? Can you see my cursor?
yes,
Barely.
Yes.
Okay, so the parking could be here also. And then you could walk down and then connect to this so you would be walking by all the fields and then get to the back area, which is beautiful. Or you could access it from Hopedale. And then also, if you went south, those could be another continuation of trails.
but on the North Avenue section, that parking area, could that be leveraged for both senior center and trails?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Because there'd
I
have to
mean-
be access. I'm pointing to a screen, you can't see my pointer. But I'm looking at that blob there at the top, at the far left. That looks like the property where the senior center proposed is, right there, yes.
Yeah, it would be up here most likely.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna unshare because I can't. All right, there, okay. So do you see, okay, let me, okay,
I think you're
Hazel
still sharing.
Charlesworth.
There we go.
Oops, we can't hear you. Oops, can't hear you, Hazel. Do you see the microphone symbol? Is there a cross over it? Let me see.
Hazel, if it helps, click on the more and then go to settings and device settings, and then just check that your microphone is the correct microphone.
You can see your mic's crossed.
Now you're muted, just go ahead and unmute that, which would be next to the camera. There might be a microphone with a line through it. Click on that. Try it now. And I still got nothing. Sorry.
Oh, boy.
Would you like to, if you'd like to, would you like to type your question in the chat?
Yeah. All right, well, while she is trying to figure that out, and just let us know when you can talk. Other questions or comments?
And this is Frank. Is there another example in the town of Mendon where we may hold a conservation restriction on property we don't own?
Yeah, there's one in on Meadowbrook Woods. The trustees of reservation own a property and we hold the conservation restriction on that. And it's same thing, passive recreation, trail, beautiful
Was
property.
Was that restriction purchased or was it a gift?
Well, it was trustees worked with the town to purchase a property. And they had to do that. They had to put a conservation restriction on their property, and so the town holds it. Let's see, we hold a conservation restriction on property that abuts the town forest, and it's the same situation where we have access to the trails, we're preserving habitat. I think that the town also holds conservation restrictions like off of Strawberry Lane, I think it is, where a developer had to set aside open space and the owner still owns it and it is not public. The town holds that, but the town didn't put any money into that.
So
It's more
of
just,
the restrictions that the town paid, do any of those restrict certain activities like hunting?
we've never paid, oh, actually, there's one property on Quissett Road that the town bought the conservation restriction. It was a complicated deal, but it was going to be a subdivision. And I don't know if you know the farm on Quissett. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Big trees. And so what happened is the state bought the back part of the property, which now there's trails and access to it. The town bought the conservation restriction on the property so that it would lower the price for a farmer who could buy it or someone else, and also just to preserve the site. So that conservation restriction, there's no public access, but the town saw the value in preserving that habitat and the scenic view. The Vandersloot property is much more prominent. You know, people drive by it every day. It would be very sad, at least to me, to see it be, a subdivision. So that would be an example where the town bought the conservation restriction. We know that property is, protected in perpetuity.
And was the Quissett Farm in Chapter 61 at the time?
It was, yeah.
It was.
Yeah. And luckily he kept it in 61 so that we would have,
And the
town
town
had a
did not
chance.
exercise their right of first refusal on that?
we did exercise the right, yes. So that's why we bought the conservation restriction and worked. It was, it's a complicated deal, but it all worked out in the end. you know, different groups working together with the state buying some, the farmer buying the land, and then the town putting the conservation restriction on. So again, the town put in a lot less money and it preserved a property that was very valuable using CPA funds. Okay, there's a couple people have questions. So Elena?
So it's more of a comment. I guess I am impressed by the value to the town by the preservation of the watershed area. And I think that's really, like, there's a lot of value there, in addition to the preservation of the habitat. So like, to me, it seems like those are the main benefits. And then the addition of the passive recreation, to me, that seems like a perk. And I think also, like, I can see the value in terms of education and sort of just preserving it's an enhancement of the rural character of the town to keep that land and then have the access to it. So I guess I see those as values that are sort of separate from, you know, the use of, I mean, I guess in addition to the use of the land.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn, you have your hand up? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, my comment is just that I love that part of Mendon. It is such a joy to drive by. It is a jewel of Mendon land that would be just tremendously sad for all that to become just another subdivision. It is just a glorious view, and and we would have to, if we allow this to not be conserved, we have to support, if it's going to become a subdivision, we have to support all of that as a town forever. And I just think for $250,000, I think this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's a historic property also, like you're mentioning on North Avenue. There are not a lot of farms left and not a lot of views like that left, you know. Lonnie, did you have your hand up?
Nope. Sorry.
Hazel, how are you doing there? Okay.
So what I'm
I'll
hearing is
read them.
everybody's talking about subdivision. Again, the town has right of first refusal, so why would it ever become a subdivision? The town would buy it.
Well,
Why
the
would
reason
town
that,
buy it?
well, because if the next owners take it out of Chapter 61, the town doesn't have the right of first refusal. You can't count on that. Owners
they
can pull
take
it
of
out.
Chapter 61 without the town having without the town being able to buy it?
Yeah,
I
what
thought that when
people,
they take it out of 61, that the town had the right of first refusal.
well, what?
No, you can
they-
withdraw it and pay some of the back taxes, or withdraw it and wait 10 years. I forget the process.
Or it's not even 10 years. You
No,
could
it's
withdraw
5.
it from, yes, you withdraw it and then you wait and then do whatever you want. I'm going to read what Hazel wrote in the chat because I don't know if all of you can see it. It says, hello, sorry about the technical difficulties. I would like to say that I live on the corner of 16 across from this area. I personally care not for the public access or hunting trails. Wait a minute. I think hunting is a privilege for a very limited few specific people. The value in this one for me as a newer resident to the community is the reduction in noise, light pollution, traffic, and the need to pay more taxes for suburb services. Towns that preserve green space increase the property values for all residents. Very restricted CR agreements are common in wealthy areas like Dover, where I work. Okay, thank you. So I'm glad you couldn't say it, but at least you could write it out. Okay.
Sorry, can we just clarify, it says I would like to say that I live on the corner of 16, like the corner of Route 16 or the number 16?
Wait a minute. Where's the chat? She says she lives in the corner of 16 across from this area, so she's nearby.
16 isn't
Route
that
16
close.
is nowhere near here, so let's clarify this.
all right,
And
she's,
there's
it
no
looks like
houses
she's
there either.
typing. She's typing. What I think what we'll do, we're not gonna take a vote on this tonight. This is like an introduction to this project. And, a new message. Okay, she says, no? Wait a minute. Oh. She said loud and trafficy Route 16. Yes, it is. So I guess Hazel, like, give me a thumbs up or some thumbs down. Do you live on Route 16? Yes, okay. But she cares about this area and she's with,
No,
you know,
I understand that, but Route 16 is nowhere near this property. We are 2 or 3
Well-
miles down North Ave at this point.
yeah, well, obviously this person cares about it and a lot of people drive by it. And so that's, you know, what she was saying.
Well, I get that, but let's not lose the fact that it's not on Route 16. That's all I'm trying to agree that we're.
Yeah, no, it's on North Avenue. This property's on North Avenue. So I'm gonna bring this up to at the next meeting. And at that point, if it's put on the town meeting warrant, then we'll vote to support it or not. And in the meantime, if people have questions, please reach out to me or Lisa, and then actually reach out to me so that I can get the answer and then share it with everybody. So everybody's on the same page.
And
Okay.
I think one question that came up several times tonight is the anticipated use of the property. We've used phrases, everything from passive recreation to limited recreation to hiking only. What's it going to be? Because that's a pretty wide range. We understand now that, you know, they want to exclude hunting for some particular reason, excluding certain citizens from using it. What exactly will happen over there? We're talking about passive recreation or a specific list of activities that can be conducted over there?
Lisa, can you answer that?
So I just want to remind you that this will continue to be private property. They are foregoing development rights, and the recreation activities will be specified in the conservation restriction. So in conversations with them, they have contemplated what they would like to see and what they would not like to see. And the majority of their preference is what we call passive recreation, which means non-motorized vehicles and education. And the
So that-
preservation, the Maple Farm Wildlife Preserve.
So that could include like bicycles, possibly, depending on what the trail ends up being, horses, that type of thing.
Possibly, depending on the ability to park a trailer and then, you know, trailer a horse or two, and then where would you access the trail, things like that. But the majority would be folks out hiking and enjoying the scenery and the habitat that they're sharing with the environment.
But you won't know that until you spend the 225,000 and then they write the conservation restriction.
The Conservation Commission, if you choose to do that, the Conservation Commission would finalize the restriction in conjunction with the land trust and the owners.
I think also to clarify, the grant, it requires public access.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's
Because
not
whenever
like all
you
of a
use-
sudden,
Yeah, whenever you use funds, Commonwealth funds, and in this case, because the land trust would get the grant, those funds are always tied to a conservation restriction. Or if you use community preservation funds, right? Any property you purchase with community preservation funds requires a conservation restriction.
One thing, I have two
Public
questions here,
access,
and
yeah.
I'll get to those. By the next meeting, it would be good to hear specifically what kind of passive recreation they would, allow. Okay, Lisa?
Mhm.
Okay, Lonnie?
Sure, sorry. One question, how does the liability work with this as far as if they're allowing passive recreation on their property and somebody gets hurt, are they liable to get sued now, or is the town responsible because we're holding the conservation restriction? Just a thought that popped in the head. Sorry.
So I can research that further, but right now they are a farm preserve and they have folks on their property, and because they're a farm in Massachusetts, you are protected to some degree with that liability.
There's also a law in the state where if you allow people to walk on your property, give an easement, you are protected unless like you did something that was, really could, outrageous to harm someone, but if, because, and the state passed that law because people weren't giving easements because they were worried about getting sued. So this law protects them.
It basically
would
makes
the
that
owner, though.
property municipal to some degree.
Peter Coffin.
Yes, we don't want to belabor the point too much, but they are an animal sanctuary. So I can see the current owners not necessarily wanting hunting on their property. And so I have to value them, and that's why this is not your normal thing. The other thing is, this is really supporting agriculture in my mind, that there's an ongoing agricultural use that's barely hanging on. And in order to make them allowed a going concern, to give them a little cash instead of selling it, we can keep the farm. So it's sort of like an APR, but it needs to be negotiated. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But
Good
that's
point.
correct, Peter, because the next generation that comes along, it's going to be even more expensive for them to farm. And if they have to look at the property at its assessed value, they probably wouldn't be able to do it. So that's a good point.
Phil, you have a question?
Just the last thing on passive recreation. Since that's a abutting property to the senior center potential location, when you talk to the folks, Lisa, the passive recreation needs to have hiking paths that are ADD, they have to be handicap accessible. 28% of the people in Mendon are of elder age. If you use the bracket of 55 to 60, many of them are very active, but many of them are not. So as we look at things abutting a senior center, I'm passionate about the fact that I love the fact the trails are there. I love fields, wildlife, but we would have to find funds to be able to get handicap accessibility to those areas to be able to enjoy that property. Not just say it's there.
I'd like to respond to that. I think if, let's say, the senior center does end up being on 131, even if it didn't connect to the Vandersloot property, but went along the wall and then maybe cut sideways because it's sort of is a hill going down. And sometimes, like with ADA accessible paths, if it's a habitat where it's very hilly or rocky or wet or whatever, you might not be able to get down all the way to all the paths, but it's a big area. And like I said, I think this would be a really good use of CPA funds to have an ADA path. And that would be something that we would look at with the senior center also, I think, to, see if that would be possible. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that trails would work easily, and as much of it as we could to make it ADA, we would. And you could also expand the trails on 131, to make more ADA. It doesn't necessarily have to go down there.
Correct. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But as we talk about, I guess I'm sensitive to passive recreation.
Yeah.
it being accessible to the complete population of Mendon.
Yep. Okay, great. Lonnie?
Yeah, sorry, just one thing, if we could clarify. So Peter was just saying that as far as the money going, the money that's going to be used from the town is going to be used as the matching grant to put this to put the trust in and the conservation restriction. Is this, are we giving this money to the landowners, or this is going to pay a bill?
The state requires that in order for the land trust to be reimbursed for this grant it's a reimbursed grant, but the land trust has to take its half and Mendon's half matching grant, the matching to the grant, and pay the Vanderslooses for that restriction.
Yeah, so we're
Understood.
buying their building rights, because they're giving up, let's see, $1.4 million if they just developed it. So, or I guess it would be 3.5, 1.6, it would be like 1.25 they'd be giving up. It's a lot of money. It's a very generous step that they're taking.
Was
But
that
then
your
some of the, and
Did
some of
that
the
answer your
CPA,
question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
some of the, I just want to also clarify, some of the CPA funds though would be the due diligence and the finishing the conservation restriction and whatnot. So, all right, any more questions or comments? And we will
Just
bring this up at the next
briefly-
meeting.
Just briefly, not to beat this up, because I think it's going to require a little more research. On the budget, there was almost $70,000 to be raised by fundraising. Is that feasible? Is there a plan for that fundraising? Some of those costs are pretty important to this whole thing. So you don't have to beat it to death tonight, but I just wanted to bring that point up about the budgeting of it and where those funds are coming from.
Yeah, that's why some of that due diligence is required by the state, like to have a survey of the property, to have a title search, even though it's a restriction and it's not a title for the deed. And of course, there's legal on all sides. So some of the fundraising is also for stewardship and trails. So it doesn't, this is a longer term, some of that fundraising is for longer term upkeep and development.
All right, anything else? Are we good? All right, Lisa, thank you for all that information, and we might be asking you more questions in the meantime, before the next meeting.
Happy to answer any questions. And thank you for having
Okay.
me.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Okay, so why don't we, the next thing, Lonnie, why don't we talk about the Trask property? The Trask property is a property that is on Trask Road. It's off of Hopedale Street in Mendon. And when Harvey Trask died, he left, it's kind of complicated, but he donated the land to the town, and it's 60 acres. It's beautiful. It's very close to Misco School also. And so the town accepted that donation, but it has a life estate on the property. And so Jeffrey Gagner can live on that property for the rest of his life. So it's this kind of, funny situation right now. And some of the things that need to be looked at with the property are, there's buildings on it. There's a house and barns. And so the building inspector needs to get in there and see, if the buildings are livable. And there's just a lot of questions with this trust. So what Lonnie is presenting tonight is an idea of what could be done with the property. And we're not going to be making any votes or anything, but we want to present the idea so that you can look at it and, see if this might be a good idea. And then in the future, we can make some decision if it moves forward. So Lonnie, do you want to share your screen?
Sure. You guys got that up yet? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we're looking at here, can you see my cursor moving around on it as well?
Yes.
So there's, actually, I wish I had 2 layers of this to kind of give you a start and finish. So right now, Kevin Meehan owns, this is so here's just to give you some relationship. Here's Misco School up here. This is North Ave. And this is the property where the barn is, and the house here on the corner. And then right now they're doing blueberry bushes down here in this section. And the Trask property comes up, and I think if I've got it right, this is the orange line, correct?
Yes, that's part of it. Yep.
Yeah. So right now Mr. Meehan's looking to increase his farm, and is looking to do kind of a swap, if you will, of this portion of the Trask land. Now, I don't have the full Trask piece up here. I can get you some more. I can pull up Land Glide in a minute. There is the remaining piece goes way up. So he's looking, so in this orange area, he's looking to get this additional piece of property to add to his, to increase the farm, to add vegetable gardens, pumpkin patches. It would be pick your own blueberries, pick your own pumpkins, for chickens, goats, cows, livestock, any type of livestock as well. There's, some small buildings that would be built for the animals. The existing house would either be renovated or maybe rebuilt for the people that are going to work at the farm. There's one existing barn, and there's an idea of either adding on to that barn to make it bigger for the farming equipment, or adding another small barn to do that. So in addition, what he would be offering to do that swap is that he will build 2 multi-use ball fields on the same piece of property, that would allow, the town could use, and he'll improve the property for that as well. So that is the quick overview of it. What it would allow too is it still allows us full access to the backland of the Trask property. And so there's a couple of moving parts here, right? And this is where legal really needs to get involved to find this. So because it's in the life estate, essentially, the town would have to vote to give this portion to Mr. Gagner, who would then release the life estate, and then he would essentially sell that to Mr. Meehan, or however that transaction happens. But in relationship, Mr. Meehan would then build the ball fields. That's what the ad is for the town on this, as well as keeping all of the property within the 61A and expanding the farm. So again, definitely a complicated situation, and it looks decent on paper, I think, at this point. And so again, it was when we had met with Ann and Jack Hunter, the town planner, the next stop to see if this was even a good idea for everyone was the land use committee. The town is in desperate need of some fields. If talking to my youngest daughter's in sports right now. I hear a lot of, parents begging for sports fields. So this was a pretty good win for us, if it's something that's even feasible to do. Like I said, legal really needs to make a deep dive into this.
Actually, there was more background. You kind of reminded me. Part of the trust said that the land can be used for open space, a school if it was named after his aunt, and sports fields. So those are the restrictions on the property. when this, or when the town was gonna originally buy the property, town council did work out a deal where Jeffrey would get, like 5 acres, and then the town would get the rest, and then there would be no life estate on it. The proposal that we had would give the town access from Trask Road, because Trask Road ends. And so if, let's say, at some point a school would be built there, I think the town would need access on part of the land where they're proposing to have Mr. Meehan own it. So that would be a complication. That would be something that I would be concerned about. And also the lower piece where they were going to do the farm is wet. So I don't know that that would be good for farming. But oh, I'd like to hear comments from people. Okay. Okay. Hazel. Excuse me.
think she
Yeah,
typed the
yes, I
chat.
believe lights will be included with these fields. I didn't ask the question yet, but I can find that out for sure.
Right. Yeah, okay.
My understanding is that it would be.
Elena?
I was wondering if you could just clarify, so that the town owns this land, but there's this life estate on it. So this would be a transfer of land from the town. So there would not be it would not be a purchase exactly. So it would be sort of a trade of land for the fields, but then also keeping the agricultural use of the land. Is that right? And it would be only a portion of this property that's owned by the town. Is that so? We're talking about the area in the orange. Is that what would be transferred from Mendon, and then everything else would be continued to be owned by Mendon?
Correct. And everything outside of the orange up here, and this goes, sorry, I'm using my hands. This area goes bigger up with the additional land. So Trask Road would still be owned by the town. The sports fields and this area would be owned by the town, and the release of the life estate, which would allow us to be able to use it faster.
Right. There wouldn't be really money involved except for the legal costs. This is quite a bit more acreage than what the town had originally offered to Jeffrey. But then the situation got complicated and the trust did not want to do the deal. So they, so the town just took the donation with the life estate on it. Carolyn, do you have a question?
Yeah, I need a little clarification about all the purple lines. Some of the lines down at the bottom of the screen that's private property, I assume. But what is the, yeah, right there. Yeah, that's right, Lonnie. But to the right where the Trask Road is, that's also personal property?
Yes.
And, okay, and so then what happens with this purple line that goes up kind of northeast? What is that?
So you have Trask Road to Old Saltbox Road. That Old Saltbox Road, that was where it was, but it's more or less part of the Trask land. I'm sure that because it was abandoned, it just shows here. So the overlay grabbed it when they put the overlay, but more than likely, if you really did a deep dive into it, it's probably one of those things where they gave half to each property owner and they kind of close up. but because it's still listed there on the overlay map, it just picked it up.
Okay.
So that
And
was
so-
old Saltbox Road continuing.
So the in the upper right where it says remaining land of lot 8, so is that also part of this arrangement?
No, so this would remain the town land. This is, right now, it is the town land. This would
Oh, okay.
remain. So essentially, it starts here, right? So where this orange line is, if you follow my cursor around, all this right now is all the town land, right? And it
Okay.
has the life estate. The orange is what Mr. Meehan is looking to pick up, if you will, in the end result, in exchange for the improvement of the fields.
Okay. And so the 2 fields where the fields are, that's already town property.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Elena,
Hi, thanks. It might be on here. I just can't read it because it's small, but what is the total area of the property, of the Trask property? And then what is the acreage of the part in the orange lines?
the
And
Trask property is around 60 acres.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then
58.3.
Mm-hmm.
And the-
And the orange area?
Is the total request, don't hold me to this, I want to say it's 9.
Does that sound right? Originally it was 5 and there was an additional 4 that they were looking for, Ann, is it, so it
That
was
might
equal
be
to?
not, yeah, it's like 9 acres.
Yeah, I want to say that it's 9. I can get you an exact number.
I guess another question I had is, would we be able to see, I mean, I don't actually know how much it costs to build these fields. I think it would be worthwhile to find out what the value is. I mean, I do believe there's value in it and I do believe there's cost. I just don't know what it is. And it looks like there's a parking lot proposed as well. So I'd be interested to know sort of what the range of costs would be if the town were to do this. Because I think that would affect sort of the relative value of this proposal.
Sure, I can probably get at least a guess number from the people that build the fields.
Yeah, that would
I mean,
be interesting.
without going up to, actually survey and soil samples and all that stuff.
Right. I mean, I think I'm more sort of curious about the current range for this type of field at, this size
Sure, got it.
field.
Lonnie, could you send me that information, then I can send it to everybody?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Carolyn. Do you have no? Okay. Hazel is typing.
Lonnie, this is Frank. Are those fields turf or grass?
I don't believe there'll be turf. There was a mention of it. I'll check. But I don't know if turf's in the budget.
Just wondering about ongoing maintenance and so forth.
Understood. We'll definitely I'll ask for a cost comparison so we can see what the difference is.
Okay. Hazel comment. I have concerns about the ball fields with show lights causing light pollution, and ball fields usually require irrigation, parking, and other amenities. It seems a sensitive area to build sports fields, not to mention additional traffic also. Would it be natural or synthetic turf? Most likely, I think what they were saying is it would be grass. Yep.
Light pollution, just to speak to that, a lot of the lighting now is all built to maintain the lighting on the facility, and they would only be lit during an event, not at all times. Other than maybe some security lights on the poles. Just based upon the sketch here, I know that they were looking at the reprocessed asphalt parking area, which is much more impervious than just using flat asphalt.
Right. Any other questions? Let's see.
Just Lonnie, to your earlier.
Elena? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Wait.
I should have raised my hand, I'm sorry. Just to
Okay,
Lonnie's point earlier, this town raising kids here and my kids raising kids here is in desperate need for fields and locations of fields that are adequate.
Mhm.
The fields at Misco are actually not very good at the school, so these would be a definite plus to the town.
Elena?
I guess I was wondering, with the prospect of lighting, if there would be an opportunity to have solar in this area to offset the electricity.
I think that if they did some kind of solar for the lights, I don't know, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to ask the solar company to get that. This is a highly wooded area. I think actually where that one field is, I know there's no, let me see if I can just pull up one other thing real quick for you. That just give us a map of what it looks like right now without everything overlaid on it, if that might be helpful. So, sec. Can you see the land glide, or are you still seeing the PDF?
Same land glide.
Okay. Oh, no.
Well, I guess I'm thinking, of the parking lot that would be cleared. So sort of like Misco has the parking, the solar panel over the parking lot, those
Understood.
arrays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as we kind of zoom in here, so this is the current piece, and again, you see that, obviously we don't have that, all the overlay on it, existing house. This is where the blueberries are, and this is where it's owned down. So
Right.
if we look over here, looking to grab this piece, and then a portion of, so actually where that field is going to go, because we're already have open fields there, at least a portion of it, there might be a little bit of clear cutting that needs to go on for it. But if you, let me get my cursor up so it's not yellow, but you can see that, pointing to it again, like you guys can see me, sorry. Where the main house is down over here currently, no, sorry, this is the house and this is the barn. Again, you see that overlay of the road, Carolyn, that you had asked about. That's the old road continuing. So again, the sports fields looking to go in this area probably have to take out a little bit of the tree line. And like you said, there could be in the parking area, we might be able to do some covering with like they've done there. I'd want to get an opinion from the solar company, but just based upon what we're looking at this photo right now, it looks like there's getting some decent sun. You can see by the shadowing of the trees, it's not cutting into the fields or anything like that. I don't know what time of the day this photo was taken, but I'm sure it wasn't the way that the sun travels. So probably have some good sun there.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up the questions because it's getting late and we still have things to do. But so we've seen the plan, and like I said, on that property, there's more things to work through. And obviously, this will be a select board decision, like the land use committee can make a recommendation, but I don't think it's gonna happen in the near future, but
Yeah, this is definitely not an overnight project.
yeah, and I just think we had, I think let's keep the Trask property on the agenda just as we sort through different pieces of information about the trust and
Sure.
what we can and can't do on the property. So, all right. Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
everyone.
Lonnie. The next thing I want to talk about is about the municipal aggregation. And Carolyn sent something out. Can you briefly explain
Sure.
how the land use committee might be involved?
Okay.
And what's
What did everybody get a chance to see the what I sent out earlier today? It is essentially that Mendon has been waiting for 4 years to work with the DPU to have municipal aggregation. And the brokers have worked to answer the DPU's questions all along the way, so like 3 or 4 times. And they tentatively approved us. Oh golly, it was, where is it? There's my document. Here we go. Tentatively approved us at the end of June. And but it was on an interim basis. And now the DPU, the broker, the Colonial Power, was aware that for about a year or so, the DPU is saying that they need to revise and the guidelines for municipal aggregation. Does everybody understand what municipal aggregation is? Let me just back up for a minute.
Yeah, why don't you just
No,
explain it
because-
really?
Okay, what it is it's an opportunity for towns to apply to be able to purchase their purchase electricity, and for them to be able to work with a broker to and the market to set the rates for electricity. And we are interested in, well, if it's possible for us to have green aggregation, which would be clean electricity and would support more solar and more wind power in New England. So so it's that, and it's usually about a 2 or 3 year contract, and then after that you're up for renegotiation of the contract. And so the DPU has come up with some new guidelines that they are proposing as of the middle of August. And the problem is that they are just more restrictive than what they currently are right now. And I think the idea is that they want to have kind of a cookie cutter approach to be able to plow through all the different towns. There are 351 of them in the state, and about currently over 200 of them are either currently having aggregation in current plans, and there are about 35, about 175 that are actually in currently being used, and about 35 of them, including ourselves, that are kind of in the middle of the approval process. So you're talking over like 200 towns that are wanting to, that would need to go along with these new guidelines. The concern that Ann and I were a part of a meeting last Thursday, in meeting with Colonial Power, because they have obviously in their read the regulations very carefully and are recognizing that they could potentially be more restrictive and allow for less town control about how we want to set our own rates, and we want to be in charge of when we're going to do this and how we would do this. And that is a source of concern because with more restrictions, we will probably not have the flexibility of being able to get the best deals for our town. And we need that kind of flexibility because National Grid and Eversource change the rates every 6 months, but the idea of having aggregation go for 2 or 3 years gives people some real price stability in terms of what they would expect their electricity to cost. So we are there is a lot of concern about the fact that the DPU is just getting more intense about what they want, how they want to be in charge of these municipal aggregation, and it would actually be less favorable for the towns. So they are recommending that the leadership in towns, the select board and our legislators express their current or their concerns that to the DPU by either October 6th or November 6th deadlines. Those are the initial proposed comment deadline, as well as the response comments for November 6th. And I think, and also to copy the Jeff Roy and Senator Michael Barrett, so that we can be in charge of more of what we really want to accomplish with aggregation, because it really gives real price control to the town. So-
I'll just add to that. Colonial Power, who the town's been working with, trying to help us with this municipal aggregation, will suggest some talking points. And Carolyn is willing to put a letter together that the land use committee could suggest that the select board send. But since the deadline is before our next meeting, I mean, we should ask, talk about this more, but what I was thinking is that maybe we could vote to support the letter, which Carolyn is going to write, and then she could, after the meeting, she could pass it around us. And if there's any issues people have, then, we won't send it to the select board. But if we're good with that, then it can, we can suggest that the select board send this letter.
Yeah. Fortunately, Colonial Power did ask for an extension. The original deadline was going to be September 18th. And so they've extended it by 2 or 3 weeks, which is really helpful, given how the wheels of towns work more slowly, because people have meetings to attend, and things don't happen until the meetings happen. So I really encourage us to consider doing this. I know that the senior citizens this last winter was extremely painful for a lot of seniors who really couldn't pay the really high National Grid prices. There was really a real hardship for them. And I think this is an opportunity for us to give some feedback to the process of being able to give ourselves more control.
And just to add to that, the DPU right now, how long have we been waiting to do this municipal aggregation?
4 years.
Okay, 4 years, which is absolutely ridiculous. And
Yes.
the DPU wants to have more control instead of giving the towns more control. So that's what this letter would be, is, requesting that towns should have more local control.
I mean, to get it a little bit more into the weeds, one of the pieces is that when towns decide when they're going to go for aggregation, and they decide, all right, we're going to set this all up and we're going to have a launch date by a particular date and a particular time. And if when the town gets the rates and they don't like the rates because it's somehow economically, who knows, the larger economic forces have changed the pricing so that it really doesn't reflect what we would like. And we would have the option to say no to that. And we've always had that option. But under these new regulations, if you say no 3 times in a row, if you say no, then they put you on a kind of a hiatus for 6 months. And then after that, then you can launch another, set up another launch date. But, and if you do it 3 times in a row, it's kind of like 3 strikes, you're out. You're going to have to, as far as the DPU is concerned, they want to go back to square one. And my understanding is that it could actually go back to, could be insisting that the town have another vote about doing aggregation, which is nuts, because that's imposing on town governance.
Elena, you have a question?
I guess it's more of a request. I think when you potentially send the letter for the select board to send, I just wonder if in your message to the select board, you could go over some of the talking points about the like value to, Mendon residents, sort of the cost value as well as, I mean, as well as the supporting of green energy and accessing green energy, because I know there can be substantial savings. And so part of the issue is that we want to make sure that we maximize the savings, because I know that's, as you mentioned, it's a concern for seniors, but I think it's worth mentioning, I think,
So,
as a talking point.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting these talking points from Colonial Power, because I want to, they're going to get into the weeds. But as I outlined in my report, those are the in the third paragraph. It's a lot of, it's under the general concern about restrictions on the town. Yep.
Any questions or comments? Would someone want to make a motion to support Carolyn putting together a letter that could ultimately be given to the select board? And it would be, shared with everyone after this meeting?
I'll move to ask Carolyn to draft a letter, and then subject to our review to send it on to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Oh, yeah, you second,
Okay.
Frank.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Okay, thank you, Carolyn, for pulling this together and working on this.
Thank you for the approval.
Okay, we have just two more items, which are pretty quick. One is that the open space and recreation plan, Dan and I submitted it, and it was provisionally approved, but then they had a lot of changes that we need to make on it. We made those changes, and then they had some other changes that they want us to make on it. And one of them is that they want us to have a public hearing for our action plan. We were kind of weaving in a lot of our public, information from the townspeople with the master plan, and we worked with the master plan committee to have specific questions that were for open space and recreation, but she wants a little bit more. And so on our October, I think it's 10th, our next meeting, a portion of that meeting is going to be a public hearing to discuss this action plan. So before that meeting, we'll send you the action plan, and we'll be discussing that, and then hopefully, and it'll be kind of a joint meeting with Parks. So I just wanted to let you know that. And the other thing is the at Founders Park, Carolyn, sorry, you're muted.
I have a question. What is OSRP? What does that mean?
Open Space and Recreation Plan. Yeah,
Thank you.
the town has to have it in order to submit, in order to write proposals for grants. So it allows the town to get money for open space and recreation projects.
Thank you.
And then when it's approved, it's good for 7 years. And it's like, really, yay. I'm so done with this.
Thank you. I just get stuck with acronyms, but if you don't know what they mean, it's really hard.
Definitely. The other thing I wanted to mention is the big sycamore trees on Founders Park. Bartlett Tree did an analysis of them, and they're really like hurting. And so we've been talking with the Ted Steves, who is the tree warden. And like in the past, the land use committee has sort of made the decisions on Founders Park and where we spend money, but those two trees, I think it makes more sense to have the tree warden take care of them and use his budget to help them be healthy. So and the what they're hoping to do is be able to prune it this fall, both of the trees, to try to kind of help the structure and the health of the trees and see how that goes. And so I don't know that we necessarily need a vote, but it makes sense for, I think, the tree warden to take care of those trees. Hazel has a question. Where's the chat? Or a comment? A comment. Nope. Okay. Does anybody else have questions in the meantime while she's typing? Okay. The trees are like 150 years old, so that's why the tree warden really wants to, you know, try to help them survive, because Bartlett was saying they're really on their last legs and was kind of recommending that maybe they need to be cut down. And then Hazel says there is no chance that they will cut them down if they go to the tree warden. No, the tree warden, actually, he's like pretty adamant about, he's talked, and Kathy Schofield is also very involved in this. They've talked to another arborist who has a plan to do pruning and try to save the trees. Yeah. And it makes sense because, you know, that's his area of expertise. Because a lot of trees have been cut down. Carolyn?
Do we know, I mean, I just want to raise the question. Certain trees often have, you know, a general expected lifetime. And I was just wondering if that has been part of the conversation. You know, I appreciate that these are 150 years old, and it would be really wonderful if they could help. But I just was wondering do we have a general idea how long sycamore trees last?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that, but the arborists probably have an idea of that, you know, and this one arborist who the tree warden is working with feels like it would be worth it to prune them to try to bring back their health. And then Hazel says, yes, sycamores can live for 200 plus years. So I don't really think we necessarily need to make a vote on it, because I think the tree warden is in charge of shade trees, and those are big shade trees. But Kathy Schofield is working with them, so she will keep us informed as what's going on. And also, we don't have a lot of money in the Founders Park budget, so I think it's better that the tree warden is using his budget. And then we have about $7,000 in the budget. And so that will be good for treatments that some of the trees need, and pruning other trees, and putting mulch down and that type of thing. And Hazel is writing one more thing. She says, I'm happy to raise money for these trees. Yeah, I think that this tree warden is willing to use his budget for it. So, yeah. Hazel, you should send an email to the land use committee, just so that we have your email, and then we can kind of let you know of things that are happening, because you seem to be interested in these topics. So if you go to the town website, just go to the land use committee and send us an email, and then we can include you. Any other comments on that? All right. That's all I have. Is there anything else anyone has?
I'll make a motion to
Carolyn?
adjourn.
Okay, wait, Carolyn has what, Carolyn? Wait, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, are we going to pass on any updates on any of the other properties? All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think so. It's just this kind of a long meeting. Oh, so Hazel lives next door to the Founders Park. Yeah. Yeah, all right, well, definitely, yeah, get you involved. All right, so did Frank
I'll
make a
second
motion
Frank's
to
motion
adjourn?
to adjourn.
Okay, Peter, all those, thank you, everybody. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Any opposed? No. All right. Thank you so much. Long
thanks,
meeting
guys.
tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.